Interesting. And over the last decade or so that you've been going at this, you've probably experienced a lot of really, really good times and really,
Yeah.
really bad times, but
Yep.
not only once, but a couple of times, right?
Hmm.
So I'm guessing that the specifics of how each scenario and situation looks like is different. But I'm guessing in hindsight, there's also always things that are similar, right? In good times and in bad times. And it could be variables within the business, variables within the overall environment and industry, or personal things, right? Could you talk about what you think is always a present variable in times of great success and then in times of great failure and difficulties?
I think it's about level setting your expectations and
Hmm.
having the wisdom to know that um, things can always get worse and things can always be better. Um, and during good times, it's important to stay humble, and know that um, that I think it's important for me to just keep a neutral, balanced mindset of especially with this such an emotional business. Every day there's highs and lows. Just walking into the office, and um, and during the downtimes, um, really believing the future and the plan that I've set forth for myself. Um, um, it's it's like I said, there's so many emotions that go into it, and I'm always determined. I'm always determined no matter what to push forward.
Right. So it's just having the inequability of understanding that good times will be over, just as bad times will be over. And having, as you said, a good foundation in terms of what you're making decisions based on, or disregarding how good the season was or how good this industry is doing right now or how poorly or badly it is right now. It's staying at that level-headed field, which long
Yeah.
term helps you make the right decisions.
Yeah, and as long as you have the foundation that's pushing forward and carrying you, that you can always rely on as an identity, that will help you get through the more difficult times.
Right. So solidifying an identity that you can use as a continuous benchmark over those difficult good and bad times, or well,
Absolutely.
unpredictable good and
Yeah.
bad times. Interesting. And how does that authenticity look like from a creative perspective? Because from a personal perspective is of course having the right decision making disciplines. But what about creatively, and what about from a business perspective? Creatively, is it more about understanding your identity and your products and being very, very disciplined in the type of product that you put out there and how you communicate it? And then from a business perspective, maybe, just having a shit ton of money in the bank, I don't know. How does that look like?
I think creatively during tougher times, it's it's for me, it's like taking your foundation and adjusting it in a creative way that still resonates to that foundation, as opposed to reaching for something that's different and new, and relying on that to carry you forward. Um, because like I said, there's so many, for let's just take denim, for example, there's so many variables and ways to play with it and to for an end usage. Um, like I can always take blocks that I know are really the best working ones for me, and for the brand, and reformat those and create newness.
Hmm.
Uh, that's from a creative standpoint, and not really um, going outside an abstract way that I know is not going to be going to have commercial success,
Right.
which I've done many times. Um, but it really, I think the time to be abstract is when things are really good and you have buzz, you have movement, and you can expand on that.
Hmm.
Um, and then business wise, it's important to always know what is going on. It's important to know, to ask questions, consistently ask questions, be curious, and never really get too comfortable
Hmm.
where you think everything's running itself and you can just be on autopilot because that's very dangerous too. I'm in a business where there's so many SKUs, so many different models. It's not a few SKUs that you're just constantly running. So you're always reinventing, you're always creating, um, you're always developing, you're always uh, selling, you're always producing. So the all those cycles are moving at the same time.
Hmm.
That's the complexity
Of course.
of this, and I'm sure you know from all your knowledge too how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And there's also keeping your investors happy, and coming up with new ideas, new strategies that are different, and knowing which knowing who to work with, what opportunities are worthwhile, what opportunities are a waste of time. Um, there's a lot that you do learn from those experiences as well.
Hmm. And would you say you are predominantly, when going through those cycles, making those decisions now, would you say it's more of an intuitive process or a rational process for you?
Both. I always when I'm making decisions, I need to um, feel it in my gut that is it a right thing or am I just doing this because I'm being pressured to do it?
Hmm.
Do I really feel it's the right thing? Um, so that's the intuition part, and the rational part is actually sitting down, brainstorming, always thinking what is the worst scenario that could happen. And if you're okay with the worst scenario, then it's fine. Um, I always think worst case, and if I'm okay with that, or if I protect myself, or put enough parameters to ensure that it doesn't get worse, then I'm okay to move forward.
Hmm. And interesting. And how would you describe a fashion business as an entity? Is it an organization that sells products, or is it an organization that manages people and the relationship with products? How would you define, now that you have a very good understanding of what it actually means, right? To actually run a brand in all the sense, having working with fashion process is just a very small facet of the entire machine. So how would you describe running a brand today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you asked about you mentioned people. I think people are the most important part of running the business. Having a good team, having a team that is generally humble, has a good work ethic, and surrounding yourself by people who know more in their field than you may. Um, I'm not one to tell everyone how to do their job. I'm relying on them to hold the part of the chain to help us all win as a whole. Um, that goes for our designers, our production people, our logistics people, marketing, ecom. There's there's all these things like I wasn't in direct to consumer. I haven't been a direct to consumer whiz off the bat. I mean, there's still terms that are being thrown around casually that I have to stop and say, hey, what does that mean? So I think running a business today is surrounding yourselves by the right talent, even um, if you have to overpay for it, um, and sacrifice more for it. Um, and um, there's also knowing like I said, which opportunities um, to accept and which opportunities to not entertain. And working with people sourcing wise that you can trust, that there's integrity. Their word means a lot when they're giving you pricing or delivery dates um, or quality issues, that they understand you and you understand them. So it's long-term partnerships that take time, and not everything is smooth right away, but as you work and you develop this harmony back and forth, that's when you have real partners and real people that support you, and like I support them as well.
Hmm. And what about your learning process through all of this? Is it, I mean, obviously a lot of it's predominantly been execution based. So you just starts with ignorance and you do stuff and you make a mistake and suddenly that ignorance turns into pain and eventually that pain turns into a lesson. But
Right.
what learning process do you apply today? Because I'm sure it's still a big part of that because of the unpredictable nature of the industry in the world. But
Right.
do you try to learn a lot from the people that you hire? Do you do you listen to the market and do you just observe what's going on and rationalize and think and theorize, or is it still, you know what, I just look at the problem that's in front of me, I try to understand what's going on overall, but in general it's just you just keep moving forward and you bump your head until the end of times essentially.
Yeah, I think there's systematic problems that take a long time to fix, and then there's smaller individual problems that are quicker to fix and can be executed in a more proficient manner. Um,
Can you give us
but
a couple of examples of both maybe so people can have like a good frame of reference?
yeah,
They could be hypothetical, they don't have to be,
I mean, let's just say, you have your sourcing strategy. Where are you obtaining your let's say a production, or a development production factory overseas, is um just relying on them to just send over product and designs and back and forth like that is not wise in my opinion. It's for me, it's developing relationships where you can really build a system by taking your time to go meeting with them, with developing the sourcing strategy, giving them more of insight as to the front side of your business so they can understand the full backside, not treating just people just part of a chain. It's a collaborative process for me. Everyone needs to know what the end goal is, and how things work in entirety, as opposed to just tunnel vision. Just this is what you're doing. Nothing else pertains to you, and you're just this part of the chain. And I've worked in both methods where and everyone just focuses on what they're doing and no one has an outside idea of what's going on, or people have a whole idea and they believe in the vision and they believe in where we need to go, and they're pushing even harder. I think that's more of the right way in our industry to work, and this is industry where it requires everyone's full how can I say involvement and full dedication. You want to get the best out of the people that are involved in this journey. So that may mean working 12, 14-hour days sometimes. But you want them to work because they understand and not work just because they're told to.
Yeah.
And that's a key differentiator for me.
Interesting. I want to put on that. I want to put a really quick opinion on the working with people thing because I think there's a very important topic there. But before we get to that, just to confirm, it's almost as if you were to simplify the both learning process and decision making process long term, is you need to have the right culture, the right systems, and the right principles in place to be able to put trust into people. And that trust, if the foundations are there, everything will eventually sort itself out if trust is established.
Yes.
Hmm. And
Yeah,
it's
and
building the
in order to,
foundations to for that trust, which is the thing that takes years and years and years.
yeah, I mean, there's also, I mean, a lot of unpredictability. And
Mhm.
let's say there's new people coming in, and there's only so much due diligence you can do and references you can have on certain individuals. It's sometimes to actually trust someone, you have to just jump into it,
Of course.
and 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 there's still an unknown factor, but um you have to be able to trust someone. You have to actually just start working trusting them.
Of course.
You have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Course. And the more experienced you become, again, the only thing that changes is there's always risk, as it is when always you're putting trust into an employee, a partner, a personal relationship, a friend. But the more experienced you are, the higher probability you are about getting those things right. I think that most people are very bad thinking about percentages, and they think that, oh, you become very experienced in fashion, so therefore you make a lot of good decisions. And ironically, is you still make a lot of bad decisions, but you just make less than you used to. And a small increase of that change from mostly making bad decisions to mostly making good decisions over long periods of time makes the difference between having really, really small brands and really, really, really big ones long term.
Right.
But people don't
Um,
understand that. People have this set of expectations that, okay, everything is this way, everything is that way. Decisions are easy because of this, or decisions are bad because of this, or times are good because of this, and times are bad because of this. But it's a very unique mindset that you need to have.
right. And I think a lot of it's based on kind of your goals. And in fashion, it's really, there's a difference between wanting to create beautiful product that is designed as a representation of yourself, and there's actually running a real business that is cash flowing and able to stay alive. um and the two don't necessarily go hand in hand. When they do, sometimes it's great. um but when I started, it was all about putting out the product that I feel represents myself, and is a representation of who I am. Um, and it wasn't necessarily focused as much on the business aspect, the analytical aspect, the data. Um, it was just, okay, this is how I feel. This is what's coming out now. This is how I feel again
This
now.
looks
This is what's
dope.
going
Let's
out.
create it. Yeah, this is yeah, I
Exactly.
get it. I get it.
Exactly.